Hi everyone, and welcome to the version 17.5 webinar for our walkthrough today to give you a look through the latest update to Schoolbox. My name's James Leckie and I'm going to be taking you on a walkthrough today and showing you some of the latest features. Firstly, we'll start off with a bit of a quick update on what things have been going on. We're really excited about seeing over 50% of our customers have already upgraded to version 17. And this is really great news because it gets you one step closer to the 17.5 release, and it'll make it much easier for you in the long run. For those that have chosen to skip 17, you have a little bit of extra work to do, so best to get your plans ready. Please remember that we do need everyone upgrading to 17.5 quite soon. In fact, we need everyone upgraded by the 22nd of December to ensure that no one loses any of their annotated documents that are stored in Crocodoc. So just a reminder that this is an important update and needs to be scheduled before the end of the year. So it's very important that you get those plans in place and you have a plan towards getting this update released. On our side, we made the commitment to get this out to you as soon as possible. So we will be delivering this in the next 2 weeks. This release candidate cycle should be fairly short. We expect that over the next 2 weeks, we'll firm this up and be going gold in approximately 2 weeks' time from now. So let's have a look at what we've actually got and what the new functionality is in the system. So we're going to start off with just looking into the admin area and some of the new features that are important for admins to know about. That's where we always like to start our walkthroughs. So we'll start with a bit of an introduction to the admin area. First off, one of the new features that we talked a bit about at the meetup, and for those that were there, we're looking to build much more intelligence around how you're using Schoolbox and what you're doing with Schoolbox out there in the real world. Obviously, we speak to you on a daily basis and we have all our meetups and our forums and we get a good picture of what you're doing with the system, but we want even more data. So with version 17.5, there's now the ability for you to opt in to a new feature that allows us to track your anonymous usage data. So just down at the bottom of the site settings here, you'll find Allow Schoolbox to track anonymous usage data. This will practically install our own Google Analytics tracking. So we use Google Analytics to track usage. So any users going to your Schoolbox will have their data submitted to Google Analytics. And from there, we'll be able to build reports on what features are being used the most, how well they're being used, different information that we're looking to get from that around what we should be focusing our development efforts on and where should we be doing more work and what areas of the system people might be having trouble with. So that's sort of our little opt-in option there. We do hope that everyone sort of contributes to that. We understand if you have sensitive information, you don't want it shared. It is an opt-in, but we would really appreciate sharing that data with us. It will, of course, be anonymous. We won't know who the users are. We just want to know what features and functions people are using within the system. Moving on, this is actually a feature that's already rolled out. It was a custom work request, and so it's already actually rolled out in the 17 series, but I thought I'd just better mention it in this webinar just to give people a bit of overview that it actually exists. We now have the ability to integrate and do single sign-on into Parent-Teacher Online. So for schools that are using Parent-Teacher Online to do their parent-teacher interview bookings, you can now integrate the system using these inputs here. So you put in the school ID and the single sign-on key, and then you just go to a simple URL /modules/PTO, and it will automatically log the user in to the PTO system and embed it within an iframe. So if you're interested in integrating your Parent-Teacher Online with Schoolbox, that's now available for you, and certainly it's already available for those on 17. If you have any further questions about that, just feel free to email support and they'll guide you through the process. Next up, we're moving to the LTI Providers. So with this update, we've actually improved our LTI capabilities. So we've added the ability to, I guess, embed third-party content into Schoolbox in a more streamlined way. And along with that, we decided that it would be useful for us to automatically install several LTI providers that make use of this functionality. So as of version 17.5, you will also automatically have Khan Academy, TED-Ed, Quizlet, Vimeo, and YouTube installed by default as LTI providers that you can use. These are all free to use LTI providers, and they allow you to search videos and things like that. So I'll demonstrate them a bit later, but just so you know that we are automatically installing these as part of the 17.5 update. If you don't want them or you've already got them, feel free to come in and delete them if there's any duplicates after the update. But we thought they were very useful, so we've added them in there for you, so you don't have to worry too much about adding them. Okay, next up, we're looking to go into the resource booking area. So I'll just go into staff services and the resource booking area. So for this update, we've had a few schools talking to us about the fact that when booking resources that are linked to the timetable, so when you put a resource into Schoolbox, you have the ability to link it up to a room code, which then links it to the timetable in your SIS. It's a great feature. Many people love it. But it has one issue, is that the timetable has a tendency to change from year to year and from semester to semester. And so if you're allowing bookings on the resource outside of that period of time, you potentially can get future conflicts with the timetable. And there's no way for us to really easily detect that happening. If the timetable's changing in the SIS, we don't really know about it. It just happens underneath our system. So in order to prevent that, we've now added the ability for you to create a resource, and I'll go to venues and create a new resource. Create a resource that will be restricted to the current term. So what this means is that when you make a booking against this resource, it will not allow that booking to exist without it being in the current term. So if your term ends in 2 weeks, you won't be able to book beyond that period of time. If your term ends in 6 weeks, you'll be able to book all the way up to that period. So it's just making sure that if you have resources that are linked up to the timetable, you can't make bookings before that timetable has been loaded for the next semester. Of course, when you go to make a booking, it will inform you of that information. So we will tell you that the booking can't be made before this date. So all the validation checks will be in there to tell you that information. So you won't get in the situation where you're trying to book a resource and you don't know what the current term is. So you can see there, we're just letting you know what the actual date you can book before is. Okay. All right, next up, we're going to go look at the ePortfolio, and there's been a few improvements to the ePortfolio, and most of these have been around the actual the blog feature of the ePortfolio. So the blog feature is typically used by junior schools a lot, so they're using it to create information about students' work and samples and log all of that information. So I'm just going to look at a student's ePortfolio here. And in the process of logging that information about students, it's useful for that to go out to parents and for parents to be notified that that's happened. And previously, any blogs that were posted into Schoolbox weren't notified. They simply just went into the blog, and that was the end of it. But now, coming into this update, the blog's been updated. Whenever you write a comment, whenever you post a new blog post, all of that information goes up and gets notified to into the notification system. So if I add a new message here, that will be notified to the student, And if I post into the student's blog, it'll be notified to the student and to the parents as well. There's also been some cleanups to the look and feel of the blog within the ePortfolio, so just bring it in line with some of the modern standards that we use. You'll see this threaded discussion being used for the comments. You'll see a few other little fixes around the place. So just a general improvement overall to the blog feature of the ePortfolio, and hopefully that helps some of our junior schools make better use of that feature, and of course the senior schools that are using the blog as well. Let's move on now and go to the next area. So I mentioned earlier the LTI Embed and the ability to embed content into a page. So I'm going to go to a demo class page now, and I'm going to insert an LTI component. So I do that via the multimedia tab here, and I drag and drop the embed learning tool here. It then gives me the option of selecting from Khan, Quizlet, TED-Ed, Vimeo, or YouTube. So those were the ones that we've pre-installed by default for all schools now. So by default, all schools will have these options. And if I click on the YouTube option here, it automatically loads a YouTube component into the system and allows me to search through YouTube in Schoolbox for a video that I might want to use. So I might be looking for a geography video, can search for that. It then gives me a series of videos that I can, of course, choose from. Click Embed, and that video will automatically be embedded into your class page. So it makes the whole process of embedding YouTube a little easier. You can discover YouTube videos from directly within inside Schoolbox. So that should be quite a useful feature for people who are trying to put videos into their system. Okay, and last but not least, what the big important feature for this release was the addition of the Kami Inline Grader to replace Crocodoc. So for those that are aware, we have for many years now had the ability to annotate and draw on students' work. And that was underlined with some technology provided by a piece of software called Crocodoc. And that software has since been, or is being shut down and is no longer available. So we're migrating everyone away from that product and onto the new product supplied by Kami. So let's just quickly have a look at how that works and what it looks like within the system. So Jana Reid here has submitted her work, and I'm able to view and grade that submission as has always occurred within the system. And now that document loads within a new editor, a bit different from the old Crocodoc, but hopefully much more sophisticated and much more user-friendly. So let's just go through some of the functionality of this system over and above the previous system. Firstly, up in the top right-hand corner, there's a print download buttons. You can look at it at different sizes, so you can zoom into the document, different layouts, depending on how you want to look at that document. We also have the ability to toggle the sidebar on and off and see an index of all the pages. So if it's a multi-page document, you can quickly jump around. If it's got table of contents, they'll show up and things like that as well. And you can show a list of all the annotations that have been made to the document through here. Additionally, on this sidebar, we have a range of different tools. And if we slide this out, we can actually see the description of all of these different tools that we have available here. So we have highlights, strike through, underline, comment, text box, equations, drawing, shapes, erasers, insert image, text to speech, a whole variety of different things here. So obviously we can use the highlight tool, we can select colors and highlight text within the document. We can add comments to certain places within the document. We can also add some more sophisticated comments in the form of video or audio as well. So if you wanted to provide an audio feedback, you could do that through here. I should note, I can't demonstrate that today because the audio and video only works through secure connections. I don't have my demo running today on a secure connection, and that may be an issue for you while testing it in your dev environments as well. But within the live environments, we will have secure certificates running, and all of that functionality will work through a secure certificate. There's a whole lot of other tools for drawing. We can obviously draw on the document. We can put shapes, eraser, and insert images as well. Okay, so it's a great new feature. It's just probably its initial release just to replace Crocodoc, but we see lots of value in this moving forward. You can see nice things like the ability to write replies to comments. Potentially we can open this up to students so that they can have a discussion around your comments as well and ask for more feedback. So there's plenty of opportunities to extend upon this in the future, and we're looking forward to utilising this software much more throughout Schoolbox. We hope you like the initial launch of Cami and the replacement of Crocodoc. All right, so that pretty much sums up and wraps up all of the new features. It is a short release. We only had practically 4 weeks to do this work in, so I'm really proud of what we've got done in that space of time. We've achieved everything that we wanted to do in that time and got everything delivered. It's looking great. We've got a short period of bug fixing and testing. We don't think there's going to be a large amount just because it's such a small amount of functionality that we're delivering in this update. So all in all, it's been a very, very exciting and pleasing release. Some important notes before we go to some questions, and I do encourage everyone, if you've got questions, send them through. I'm happy to answer any questions after this, but before we do, just some important notes. So with this update, there's 2 pretty important migrations of data that are going to be occurring behind the scenes. And for the most part, you won't need to know that these are happening, but I just need to mention them because it will have an impact on how much disk space you have, because we are migrating more content onto disk, and so it will have some impacts on disk space. Firstly, traditionally we've stored the plagiarism report given back inside documents. We've previously stored them in the database. And what we've found over many years of gathering these reports, that's really grown to quite a large amount of data. And it's making things like database backups and looking after the database a lot more difficult because that table is just getting so large with all those reports in it, especially with schools that have been with us for 10 years. We thank you for your continued service, but for those schools that have had us for a long time, they're getting a lot of plagiarism reports building up in their database. So with this release, we will be migrating those out of the database and onto disk. So we'll be moving all of those files that are currently stored in a field in the database onto disk. You won't notice the difference, but the database will shrink and your disk usage will increase. The next big migration that we're also doing is the backup of all the Crocodoc documents. So previously, when you annotated a student's work and returned that to the students, you would have put your track changes, you would have done all your changes and your markings and your annotations, your comments, and we don't want you to lose those. So as we move off Crocodoc, we will be archiving all of the documents that are in Crocodoc onto disk on your server. So we'll take all of the Crocodoc documents and download them locally onto your server. Now, for some schools, this is a trivial amount of data. For other schools, this could be quite significant amounts of data in the gigabytes. So just be aware that we will be doing those 2 migrations. They will take some time during the upgrade process. We don't expect it to impact on the service while we're upgrading. But just be aware that you'll need to make sure you've got enough disk space. You need to make sure that we've got time to migrate all of it. that data across. And with Crocodoc in particular, Crocodoc is shutting down at the end of the year. So if we don't do that migration before that date, we will not be able to get those documents back for you. So please make sure you do upgrade before the end of the year. So that's about it for the walkthrough today. I thought now we'd go to some questions and discuss a few of your questions. Okay, so I've got a few questions. Marco Merchant asks, will YouTube videos play at school if they are blocked at the school? No, I don't have a firewall proxy breaking system. We do, interestingly, have a partnership with, is it Netbox Blue, I think, Cyberhound now, and they allow us to unlock sites that are published in Schoolbox. So there is the capability to do that. So that's worth investigating. But at the moment, if your school is blocking YouTube, it will be blocked whether it's in Schoolbox or not. Schoolbox can't get around that. So Mary Lou asks, I assume in regards to the Cami, can you use this to work on a blank live collaborative doc on a page? Currently with Cami, no, that's not possible. We've just used it to replace the Crocodoc implementation, but I think in the future we'll definitely see it being used for two new purposes that I would like to introduce. One is a Cami component on the home pages so that you could add Cami documents into your class page for collaborative use. We think that would be a really great usage for them. The other use case that we see is creating a due work with a Cami document as a document that's shared with the students. So thinking about it from the context of create due work, attach PDF to it, and then the students, rather than submit the PDF back to you, open the PDF in Cami, make their changes, perhaps write on it, fill in the worksheet, and then that automatically gets saved as their submission once they're completed. So there's a potential for us to use Cami as a submission workflow as well as a dedicated homepage component. So we're going to be looking into those use cases in the future as well. David Howard asks, are there any new sports fixtures features? Not specifically. We are doing a few tweaks and bug fixes around sports fixtures. So we've got some feedback around some, little tweaks that we can make to help out. So we'll be doing a few things like that. So nothing major in sports fixtures, but just some improvements to the display, the usage, and some extra things like that. But no big new features for sports fixtures. Hal asks, in case I missed it, does Cami support inking? Yes, Cami allows you to draw and things like that on the document, so you can do whatever you like with it. So you can do any types of drawing, annotating that you like. It will work with styluses as well. So if you've got a tablet and a stylus, you'll be able to draw directly onto the document. For those that have tried that with Crocodoc in the past, it was always hit and miss whether it would work or not, but it's much better supported in Cami. So we've got much better device support for that. So I've got a question here from Aaron. He asks, how long is the upgrade expected to take? And well, this is really dependent on how big a Schoolbox instance you have. We're expecting, because this isn't a major upgrade, but there are some migrations to happen. Look, I mean, those migrations will depend on how much data you have in your database. I would expect probably 1 hour to 2 hours for the upgrade to take place. But the actual upgrade the system will work well before the upgrade has finished. So as usual, you'll probably be able to use the system within 20, 30 minutes, and those migrations will continue to run for perhaps an hour or two while they do all that work. The Crocodoc migration in itself, that may take even longer, but that's a background process and can just keep running overnight, and you won't notice if it's running or not. It won't impact on your usage of the system. So don't worry too much about those migrations locking up the system or anything while it's being upgraded. Okay, so David Howard asks, will the Plaguescan still compare the final submission to the draft? Will Plaguescan still compare with the old submissions from previous years? So interesting question. To the first part, in version 17, if you've drafted a document, we will automatically delete that when we create a new submission. So it won't compare itself in version 17. It won't compare itself against itself. So you don't need to worry about that in version 17. So that's already been fixed as part of version 17. Will Plaguescan still compare with old submissions from previous years? Yes, it will. If the work is in any other submission box and submitted by any other student, it will always compare against the old submissions. So yes, that already does happen. Ashley Voigt asks, is there an LTI for SafeShare TV? Sorry, Ashley, I don't know. It's probably a good question to ask them. I'm not sure, but we'd be happy to work with any LTI providers that are out there that need help integrating with Schoolbox. We're happy to support that. Yeah, just let us know. Get in contact with them first. Ask them if they've got anything, and if they do, let us know. If you need any help getting it set up, just let us know. It's normally a pretty straightforward process, but LTI can be a bit finicky because there's a lot of different ways that it can be used and different interpretations of LTI. So just be aware that even if there is an LTI component, it doesn't always work exactly the first time. Thus why we've had to increase our capabilities with LTI with this release, because we got it working for some things, but not everything. Now we hope it works for more things. Okay, Emma asks, will there be a time when we can see the work submitted and the rubric on the same screen side by side? To have to scroll down between the two is very inefficient. It makes time consuming to mark online. We'll need to have a paper rubric or another screen open at the same time. Emma, I hope one day we're all wearing VR screens and we can put it all in VR and see it all in one place at one time. Unfortunately, we are limited by screen real estate, and it is a challenge, and as much as I would like you to fit everything on the screens at once, we've actually seen a reduction in screen size over the last few years. Interestingly enough, people are going for smaller and smaller laptops, and screen size is getting more and more reduced. So at the moment, we're sort of limited by what real estate we have on people's screen. We'll keep looking at it. But yeah, it is a difficult one because we are restricted by screen. We could make the document really small and we could make the rubric really crunched up, but then it would be hard to read. So at the moment, it's just a matter of having to scroll between the two, unfortunately. Emma asks again, we'll be able to access more analytics. Teacher would like to view who has accessed what videos, assignments, quizzes, so it can see what is popular and monitor class participation. We've actually got the ability to see what videos and things and files and what has been accessed is what popular, and certainly quizzes and assignments. Student activity within them is all logged. Obviously not views, but if they submit or complete the quizzes, they certainly will tell you whether they've participated or not. So they're great tools to track participation. You know, a great idea that I always suggest is if you've got a video that you really want the class to watch, you know, the easy way would just be to embed it into your class page. But the much better way would be to embed it within a quiz. Ask a couple of questions at the end, so you get them to watch it, ask a couple of questions, they submit the questions, and you can track all the kids that watched it, filled out the questions, got them right. You'll have all that data about their participation in that video. So it's just about, you know, bringing together a couple of different tools in interesting ways and getting that data that you need to know who's participating. So yeah, there's some good ideas. for how you might be able to monitor class participation, especially around resources that you might want them to read and you need to track their progress. All right, so Brenton Harty, he asks, how does Kami and Google Docs live together from a new school? Okay, so it's an interesting question, and look, Google Docs and for that matter, Office 365 and OneNote and all of those products all have their place. I mean, these are big companies dedicated to the process of building out sophisticated document management tools for big business, and they're great tools. They're powerful. They've got lots of functionality. But what we find is that we have a whole spectrum of users out there, a whole lot of skill sets within our teachers. And for us, it's really about delivering the simplest solution possible, but making the more sophisticated options available to your power users as well. So we want to have both options. We want, your users who just want something easy to use, easy to set up, to have Kami. It's just there. It's just ready to go. They don't need to, switch between different programs. It's all just packaged up for them. It's nice. If you want to use more sophisticated tools, Google Docs has got amazing collab stuff in it. If you need that more sophistication, by all means use Google Docs. And we're going to be working next year to enhance our Google Docs and our OneNote and our Office 365 integrations to make them even smoother. But it's what you choose, what makes sense for you, not just as a school, but as an individual teacher. It's about choosing the right tool for the job. We're just here to make sure that all those tools are available and as easy to access as possible. All right, next up. So Chris Brown, does Kami support voice annotation? Yes, Chris, it does. You can drop voice comments in line with your document. So if you've got if you want to speak to the student about a particular sentence or particular part of the document, you just drop a comment on it and record audio, and the student can play that back. So, yep, we've got voice annotation now embedded right within the document, so the student can play back those little snippets of sound relevant to the parts of the document that you've recorded them on. All right, Christopher asks, regarding migration of plagiarism and Crocodoc, how can we check the size of data required to be free on disk? It's a good question. So for most schools, it's going to be a fairly small amount of data, and I don't want you to worry too much about it. For most schools, it's not going to be an issue. I would only really be concerned if you've got, say, our biggest schools, we're talking maybe about 10 gigabytes of data max, and this is for schools that have been with us for 10 years and have got 500,000 documents in there. So that's the max that you sort of need to worry about. So if you've got 100 gigabytes there, no need to worry. But if you're running really low on disk and you've got 10 gig, perhaps put in an email to support and we can check it out for you. So what we'll do is some database queries and we'll pull out how much disk we think it's going to require, because we've got all that data in the database, and we'll just give you a summary of that. So if you are concerned, if you're in that that small percentage of schools that have got under 10 gigs free on disk, just give us an email and we'll let you know how close it's going to run by looking at the data in the database. Okay. David Howard, are you going to give us a login to Plaguescan to see who uploaded the original file? David, you're out of date. Version 17, we upgraded Plaguescan, and it now gives you access to Plaguescan's site. We do single sign-on now with Plaguescan, and it gives you access to all of the features on the Plaguescan site for a limited time. So when you click on the Plaguescan report in Schoolbox now, it actually is doing a single sign-on request to the Plaguescan servers. You see all that information. You see who uploaded the original file. We've also done the work now to rename the file so it has the student's name in it. So when you're looking at it, you'll see the student's name in the file names of those that it's been copied across. All right, so Vincent Go, any plans to implement a log of who accessed a page and when? So We do have a basic log of who accessed a page and when. If you go into homepage statistics, you'll see that we are accumulating data on the last time a user visited the page and how many times they've visited a page in a month. We're currently not logging every single access by every single user because we found that the data was just too much for us to store and it took too much resources for us to handle. So we haven't got that data, but you can, of course, use the basic data we have, which is the last visit and also the date. So all of that has been logged. But if you need more, come and speak to us. We've got some other ways to capture that data. You can use Google Analytics. You can do a whole lot of other things to start to see more detail if you need to. But in the homepage statistics, you will find that you can find out when the person visited last. Okay, Sam asks, when Cami is added as a due work item, could it be used for students to submit video assessments? Yeah, I can't see why not. Interestingly enough, we don't actually need Cami for students to submit video assessments. Schoolbox already has video assessments built in. So what we do, if a student submits a video to Schoolbox, we automatically transcode that into a streaming video. So that's practically available today. So if you want your students to hand in videos, it's ready to go. You can use that. Of course, you can't comment or mark up a video, but you can have students submit video and it will be a nice previewed video that you can watch in line already. So that's functionality right there. You could do it within Cami, but it's probably just going to be nicer to do it as a standalone video file. All right, one last question I think I've got here from Elizabeth. Can you export a final edited document out of Cami which includes audio, and then can this be listened to by another user outside of Schoolbox? That's a really great question. I was thinking about this myself actually this morning, and I don't actually know the answer. When you export a document out of Cami, it comes out as a PDF. I'm not sure you can embed audio within the PDF document. I would need to have a talk to the Cami guys about that to see if it's possible, but I have a feeling it's not. And I have a feeling that, yeah, it's one of those things where, you know, old formats weren't designed for the sophisticated stuff we're doing these days with these live documents, web documents. And so exporting them is always going to lose some of that functionality. So I would say probably not, but you know, if you're interested in sharing these documents, that could be something we could look into. We could look into how we might be able to make them shareable. That's certainly something we could talk about. Okay, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Thanks everyone for coming along today. It's great to show you all what we've been doing with 17.5. Like I said, the release candidate's available now, so you can get this into your dev servers, start testing it out, trialing it out, what you've seen today. We expect it to go gold in about 2 weeks' time, pending any critical issues, of course. But yeah, we're expecting probably a 2-week to go gold, and then we'll be obviously looking to get everyone scheduled in to upgrade before the end of the year. So that's about it from me. Thanks very much for coming along, and I'll speak to you all soon.